Most Ford EcoBoost owners think they understand maintenance. They change the oil, replace the air filter, top off the coolant, but hidden inside your turbocharged engine right now are 5 separate failure points that nobody talks about, and when they fail, they don't just cost you money, they cascade. One failure triggers the next, and before you know it, you're looking at a $15,000 engine rebuild that started with something that cost $300 to fix. Let's start with the foundation of every EcoBoost reliability problem: thermal management. Your 3.5L or 2.7L EcoBoost is a forced induction engine. That means turbochargers compressing air at extreme pressure before it enters the combustion chambers. Turbos work by harnessing exhaust heat energy. The hotter the exhaust, the faster the turbo spins, the more boost pressure it creates. This creates an interesting problem that Ford engineers have been fighting since the first EcoBoost shipped. The engine produces more heat because it's more powerful, but it also needs to stay cooler because that heat damages components faster. Inside your EcoBoost, coolant is circulating through passages designed decades ago for naturally aspirated engines, now handling temperatures that those passages were never intended for. When you drive your EcoBoost hard, whether that's towing, spirited acceleration, or even just highway driving in hot weather, your coolant temperatures climb. Not just a little bit. We're talking about internal engine temperatures regularly exceeding 210 degrees Fahrenheit. Here's the critical detail that Ford owners don't understand. The cooling system is the same system that's been in F-150s since 2011. The radiator, the water pump, the hoses, incremental improvements, sure, but fundamentally the same design trying to handle significantly more heat load than it was originally engineered for. The result is that the first hidden failure point happens silently inside your coolant system. The water pump cavitation issue is something I see on every third or fourth EcoBoost that comes through with overheating complaints. The pump impeller has a finite lifespan. It's spinning at 6,000 to 8,000 RPM in a high temperature, high pressure environment. The metal gradually fatigues. Micro cracks develop. Around 60,000 to 80,000 miles, the impeller efficiency drops. It's not obvious because the pump still spins, the engine still circulates coolant, but the flow rate is reduced by 20 or 30%. That reduction in cooling efficiency means higher operating temperatures everywhere. Now here's where it gets worse. Higher coolant temperatures activate a cascade of secondary failures. The thermostat opens more frequently to try to bring temperatures down. The cooling fan cycles more often. The transmission cooler, which shares coolant lines with the engine on many EcoBoosts, works harder, and your transmission fluid, which is already operating at elevated temperatures because the engine is producing more heat, gets even hotter. Transmission fluid at normal operating temperature is around 180 degrees. That's where it's designed to work. But when you have a degrading water pump at higher engine temperatures, you're pushing that transmission fluid to 200, 210, sometimes 220 degrees. At those temperatures, the fluid is breaking down. The friction modifiers are oxidizing. The viscosity is dropping. The fluid loses its ability to protect clutch plates and valve bodies. I've opened up transmissions from EcoBoost trucks with less than 100,000 miles that showed the friction wear patterns of a 250,000 mile transmission. The fluid was literally cooked, and the owner had no idea it was happening because transmissions don't give you warning signs. One day you're shifting smooth, the next day you're feeling slipping, feeling hard shifts, and your transmission is already damaged beyond repair. The second hidden failure point is the turbo wastegate. This is a valve inside your turbocharger that controls boost pressure by routing some of the exhaust gases around the turbine wheel instead of through it. The third failure point is in the fuel injection system itself. EcoBoost engines use direct injection. The fuel injector sprays fuel directly into the combustion chamber at extremely high pressure, sometimes 2,000 psi or more. Over time, fuel deposits accumulate on the injector tip. The deposits restrict the spray pattern, piston crown erosion, valve seat recession, and gradually dropping compression. The fourth failure point is the PCV system, the positive crankcase ventilation system. This is supposed to manage crankcase pressure by routing vapors back into the intake. But on EcoBoosts, the PCV routes vapors through the intake manifold directly. Those vapors contain oil particles, fuel vapors, and combustion byproducts. They coat the intake valves, especially on direct injection engines where there's no fuel washing to keep them clean. The fifth failure point is the cooling system again. Because here's the thing that almost nobody talks about. The coolant itself is a critical component. Ford EcoBoosts use a specific orange motorcraft coolant that's designed for the aluminum alloy construction of modern engine blocks. Use the wrong coolant type and you create electrolytic corrosion inside the cooling passages. So here's what actually happens when you ignore these hidden failures. The water pump becomes less efficient. Temperatures rise. The transmission fluid starts cooking. The wastegate gets sluggish and boost pressure climbs higher than it should. Fuel injector deposits create uneven combustion. Knock events increase and timing is constantly being retarded. Blow-B increases because of the higher pressures, contaminating the PCV system. Suddenly, the transmission won't shift right. Or you start losing power. Or the check engine light comes on for detonation. Or your water pump fails completely and you overheat on the freeway, and when you take it to the dealer, they diagnose the immediate problem. They replace the transmission, or they replace the turbo, or they replace the water pump, but they never address the 5 failures that cause the one you're paying for. Here's how you prevent this cascade. First, service your cooling system properly. Don't skip the 100,000-mile cooling system service. Flush it completely with Ford Coolant. Replace the thermostat. Check the water pump for cavitation noise. Second, monitor your transmission temperatures. If you have access to an OB2 scanner that can read transmission fluid temperature, do that at 80,000 miles. Third, have your fuel injectors professionally cleaned at 80,000 to 100,000 miles. Your EcoBoost is a precision instrument. It was engineered to deliver power and efficiency at the edge of what's physically possible. That engineering margin is thin. There's not a lot of buffer for neglect. One hidden failure point leads to another. Understand what's happening inside your engine. Stay ahead of these 5 failures, and your EcoBoost will give you reliable, powerful performance for as long as you own it.